Welcome, everybody, or shall I say, bonjour, to the Backlash review here on Wrestling Inc. We're going to be talking all things Backlash today. It just ended like 10 minutes ago, so it's still fresh in everybody's mind. Of course, I'm not alone. I'm George Hermoza, but I got two other very good-looking gentlemen to my left and to my right. That's right. That's right. I just got to fit them all. But I got Jimmy Korderas and Jon Jordan. I feel like I should change my name to a J just for the sake of but that's gimmick infringing on what you guys do on Mondays, Jimmy.
Well, a little bit of gimmick infringement. It's not like it hasn't happened before in this business, that's for sure.
There's no such thing as a fresh idea, right? At this point.
So, maybe next time. Maybe when we cover the next PLE here on Wrestling Inc. But this is going to be a fun show. You want to know why it's going to be a fun show? Because we just saw a really fun show for WWE Backlash France. I do want to talk a little bit about the star of the show, the crowd. Holy moly. Talk about just everything right about pro wrestling. I want to ask you first, Jimmy, just because you've been in the WWE for decades, and whether you like to know it or not, you are a performer as well. Whether you're wearing the black and white, the old school baby blues, you're part of the show as well. So with that said, what is it like for you to be in the middle of the ring with such just a loud, passionate, energetic, rabid atmosphere like we saw in France today?
Well, you can see as with the talent themselves, they feed off that energy big time, and it is infectious. And it also for the referees. I know we're supposed to be in the background. We're kind of like invisible and doing our job, kind of, helping the talent tell their story. But at the same time, you can't help but feel that energy. And it's almost like you got to calm yourself down because like I said, you're supposed to be the invisible player helping them, being the conduit and that sort of thing. But it's incredible. I said it on Twitter today. I'm happily retired from all in-ring stuff that I do, and I'm completely content with but that energy and that crowd today gave me goosebumps. And you know what? I miss it tremendously. That's the one thing I miss so much. Not only the camaraderie with the boys and all that kind of stuff, but stuff like that makes you go, wow, I wish I could experience that just one more time.
We always talk about energy levels for the crowds in general in wrestling shows, and sometimes they fade out at some point. But this crowd came in hot for the beginning, and they never stopped throughout, almost to the point where it was. I was wondering if it might be even distracting to the talent. To your point, Jimmy, it's fantastic, and I got the party still going here. These guys are still la 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 la. That was fantastic. It wasn't just that, the singing, the chanting. I mean. Announcing the names of the talent along with Samantha Irvin. So cool. Like one of the coolest things I've ever seen.
Really, really quickly, I just want to make one thing. I know a lot of people say that the crowd is trying to take over the show and be the star of the show. That's not what I felt here. I felt them actually genuinely having a great time and enjoying what they were seeing. And they were just letting out all their emotion. There's a difference between trying to steal the show and just being a part of the show, enjoying it. And that's what I felt from this crowd tonight or today, this afternoon. Tonight.
Me being one of them, there was a lot of talk on Twitter is how do you go back and have shows in the United States now? Like, I know you're in Canada, but we're all in that North American kind of feel. Like, I feel ashamed that there isn't a crowd here at all that as passionate as it was, even going to last year to the Puerto Rico crowd and Backlash, a couple months later to the UK crowd. Now France is like, oh my God, like it's almost as if they're auditioning for WrestleMania.
Yeah, we got to step up our game over here for sure. I was saying there's something about the international crowds. It's just fantastic. And I was explaining it to my 15-year-old son. They don't get to see it that often. They have to wait for a very long time. And so when it's not like us where we, have it at our disposal almost, once, twice, 3 times a year around here for me. But they explode with that energy and that joy, and they're so excited. And I will say this, as I say, we need to step up our game. The next time I go to a live wrestling show, I am stealing 1-2 Sacre Bleu. We're doing that here moving forward.
I do want to talk a little bit more about that just because that Jey Uso entrance was just like I still got goosebumps right now just thinking about it. But obviously we're going to be in I know the next one's in Saudi Arabia. They don't really count. But like the one after that, Clash of the Castle from Glasgow, Scotland. You think those guys are watching this show and be like, you think that's a crowd? Yeah, you ain't seen nothing yet. Challenge accepted.
No, absolutely. And that's the beauty of it, because they don't get it as often as, like you said, John. It just translates. And that entrance, like you said, by Jey Uso, with everybody with their cell phones doing with the lights dimmed down. What a visual. That was incredible. And I hope that catches on elsewhere. That's something that could be, and like you said, George, hey, you want to see us? Hey, we're grabbing one of these and we're going to top you.
I have a feeling that we'll catch on. We'll see that again, I believe, with the cell phones.
Before we start going into the matches, I do want to give a shout out to everybody in the chat. We got Maestro Doc 65, Killer Demon 69, the usuals, Corey Pride, Shelbowski. Like, the crowd was hot for France, but I'm all about the guys that are in the chat watching us right now. Like, people don't realize that we're also live all over the world. And I want to thank everybody here watching. Thank everybody here watching, whether it's live or watching later. Everybody in the comments, we're all watching you. Thank you so much. We feel your passion as well. Why? Because we're all wrestling fans too. Mm-hmm. With that said, I want to talk about the main event first, because we just saw it like 10, 15 minutes ago. Like I said, Cody Rhodes versus AJ Styles. Before we talk into the match, I do want to talk about one specific thing that was kind of getting talked about a lot in the last week or two, especially from a report that we saw about a couple days ago about there's nothing really planned soon for Cody Rhodes in terms of anything big up until Rock and Roman come back maybe in the summer and the fall. And then we saw a lot of maybe criticism. It doesn't help that a lot of the AEW diehards were talking about that interview that he did earlier this week. But even not talking about that, but just AJ Styles, like, was he the right first opponent? Were we expecting something bigger? And I do want to throw out this out there before I get into your thoughts, John, is that usually the pay-per-view after WrestleMania, I think we were all accustomed to getting rematches, right? It goes back to the first Backlash, Rock and Austin. It goes back to the Backlash in 2004 where we saw the triple threat main event, main event one more time the week after or the month after, even to the point we saw, a couple years ago when it's Extreme Rules or whatever it is. My point is, usually the pay-per-view after the Mania is like, rematch central. Not so much here. Do you think people are just too accustomed to that they were not expecting, or maybe like we're not going to have Cody and Roman just weeks after, right? So what is it about, you think that's a mentality, or what do you think of AJ Styles being the first challenger for Cody Rhodes?
I thought the match was fantastic, and I think AJ was a great opponent. I don't think there was too many people out there, if any at all, that thought we were going to see a title switch here, and that's okay, because going into this, you're going to get a great match, a phenomenal one, if I may. And there goes that crowd again, probably singing their song. But I think it's another indicator of, and this is getting played out, but a new era, right? You're talking about rematches. We used to have WrestleMania rematches the night after sometimes, or you know what I mean, after every pay-per-view and the next night. So people were getting tired of that. Again, I don't think we were at any time we're had a chance of seeing a Roman Reigns Cody Rhodes rematch here. I like kind of resetting the table, so to speak. There's a big long-term story coming back whenever The Rock comes back for Cody, or whatever happens in between now and then. And maybe this will continue in one way or another as these rosters reset. But it was a great match, and I mean, you couldn't go wrong there. There was no way that was going to be a mistake, I don't think.
Nah. I have to agree with you, John. It was a good call to put AJ Styles in there, because these guys not only gave their all, they brought out the best in each other, and that's the beauty of it. And you could see that they were feeding off the energy of this crowd as well. You talk about two guys that could read an audience. They knew that they were up against it, because what preceded them in the rest of the show, they had to deliver. That was big time, because there was a lot of good stuff on this pay-per-view that they hit. That whole adage, follow that, guys. That's what there was a lot of tonight, and they followed it, and they put on a hell of a performance. Like you said, you could nitpick and say, well, we knew that AJ wasn't going to beat Cody for the title. It didn't matter. It's all about being entertained, and they put on, you want to say banger? That was banger. Man, these guys put it all out there, and I want to give a special shout out to Jessica Carr for doing a great job of being the first woman in the WWE to officiate a world championship match. And that was, good on her. She earned it.
Have you ever met Jessica Carr at all, Jimmy?
Briefly, just in passing when she was, they were in Toronto one time, but she was busy and it was just like, hey, it was nice to meet you and that kind of thing. But when they're here for Money in the Bank, I'm going to make it a point to drop in and just visit with everybody if I can.
Yeah, very good job, Angie Schniddle. Hopefully I said your name right. Schindel. Yes, good job, Jessica. Like I said, history being made. Jessica Carr, a lot of first when it comes to women in the roughing world of pro wrestling, and kudos to her. Yeah, I can't say enough about this main event. This main event. We're gonna get into the match of the night later on today, and candidate for definite match of the night from you guys. But what do you think is next for Cody Rhodes? We obviously have the Saudi show next in a couple weeks. Do you think he's going to be defending in that show, or do you think you should give him a break, to have him not having defend in every PLE like we've seen before? So what do you think is next, Jimmy, for Cody Rhodes?
See, that's a tough call because, like you said, with the recent draft and the lineup, not much of a shakeup, but there's a little bit of a shakeup. It's tough to call because, like we said, AJ was the first good opponent to establish him as a champion. It was a credible win against a credible challenger. AJ did a phenomenal job there, but who would be next? See, I would have liked to have seen someone like a Gunther change sides and go over to SmackDown, but too soon for him to challenge right away. So maybe it would be a good idea to have him lay out for one pay-per-view and wait for Clash at the Castle or something like that. But those deals in Saudi Arabia, those PLEs, I keep wanting to call them pay-per-views because I know, that's how my brain works. But yeah, it's a tough call to make someone credible enough in this amount of time to challenge for that championship and make people say, hey, you know what? Here's a credible threat to Cody that he might lose this championship. But for right now, I don't think there's a rush for that. You don't need it.
And I think it actually might make sense for him to take a little bit of a break here, not to be off TV by any means. And we know that he can show up and talk and entertain people and be part of this segment and that and so on and so forth. But remember, we've got King of the Ring about to start happening here, right? So a lot of those names that you might have thrown into the category of, well, maybe these guys will have a little push here and they might be a contender. A Gunther, for instance, they're going to be busy for a bit here. You know what I mean? As we build up toward King of the Ring. So if there is a good time for him to lay one out, then maybe that would be it. Maybe this would be it.
Do you kind of see maybe Bobby Lashley at some point maybe rising up to the main event level one more time and challenging Cody?
That's another name. I'm sorry, Jimmy. That's another name that makes perfect sense. A guy, who you're not going to go wrong with, right? Mm-hmm. And maybe you don't get a lot of belief in the fact that he might take the belt away. But like Jimmy said earlier, that doesn't really matter. Put on a good match, make it a good challenge, and the people will enjoy it. Look what we saw today.
Yeah, and he recently had a TV match against someone, Cody, that he defeated, who just got called up, I guess, for lack of a better term, to the main roster. And there could be something there because it seems like they started something on Friday night with him and Bobby Lashley, where he's the young upstart, kind of disrespecting the locker room veteran, which, plays into a lot of things that's been going around lately, at least in the news, as far as we know elsewhere. So who knows? Maybe there's something there and saying, hey, you know what? You got the better of me on TV that one night. I was still fresh and excited over being the new draftee. Maybe he kind of, puts his name in the hat and you have something there where you can at least have a good match. But will it be credible enough? I don't know. It depends on how the build goes, if they do that.
I guess we got to stay tuned and find out, don't we?
Yeah, there you go.
From one WWE Championship match to another one, we saw the World Heavyweight Championship match, champion Damian Priest defending against Jey Uso. I want to talk about it now because I know we talked about it briefly. Holy moly, that entrance! Like, Jesus Christ! Like, now I want to put emphasis on it. Now that I can put a lot more energy in that entrance. Like I don't know how this hasn't been a thing since for the last 9 months or however long Jey Uso's had that solo entrance for. But this is one of those instances, and I'm going to talk very briefly, and I don't want to put too much energy about the other place because. That to me, AEW has a very rabid fan base, and by all means, I love watching their shows. But if they had that kind of energy, whether it's 1,000, 5,000, 10,000, I'd want to go to the shows because I want to be a part of that show. For example, that's part of the show now, and why wouldn't I want to be a part of that? So when I see a show Backlash France, and I see that Jey Uso entrance. Jesus Christ, if that doesn't get adapted on a regular basis, shame on every single American wrestling fan for the rest of my life.
And I don't know if it was by accident or they knew that it was going to happen, because usually during Jey Uso's entrance, they want the crowd lit up so you can see them doing the yeet deal and all that kind of stuff. And Pat McAfee jumping on the announce table and all that sort of stuff. But this was different. They dimmed the crowd and you saw all those lights from their cell phones. And that was an incredible sight. And I hope they, like you said, capitalize on this. And when they go back to the United States or wherever they are next and Jey Uso comes out, let's see if they dim those lights again and see if they get that same reaction, because that should catch on big time.
Well, I think they must have had an inkling, right? Because of the way that Jay came out and the way he stood over them up top with all the phones out, lights on, and he starts yeeting, for lack of a better term.
Is that what it's called now? I didn't know that's what that meant.
I'm too old to keep up with this.
That's what we're calling it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But no, that was a great visual. It set the tone for the rest of the match. Like Jimmy said, it makes you want to be there. But the thing is, and George, you talked about AEW and the kind of energy that, could really boost a program like that. This type of stuff just comes about organically, though. Like, I wouldn't want to go to them and say, hey, we got to come up with something that we got to make the crowd chant, or we got to make them do this little dance. Like, it's going to happen based on the energy that the performers themselves and the storylines bring to the show. You know what I mean? It's almost like when you start a new job somewhere and they're talking about, like, we really need to, the culture is great here. We've established a great culture. Well, I mean, did you inject it forcefully, or did it kind of grow over time because of the people that are there?
Corey Pride, I do see your chat. I'm going to show it later on when we talk about that match, but I do have another one. I said the same thing about dart tournaments on TV. I know nothing about darts, but the crowds on TV are so crazy. I want to be a part of it. I have a question. Are we is that a thing in darts? Like, I've seen darts on TV, whatnot, but like, are there crowds that are that rabid when it comes to dart? Like, that sounds amazing, to be honest with you.
I guess if you're in the Judgment Day locker room, it is a thing. I don't know.
I never heard of that before. I like darts. I don't think I would like to watch darts, but what else goes with darts, and maybe why they're so raucous? It's just like a crowd. I saw a few pops in the crowd at France today. A lot of times people are playing darts. There's some beverages going around. You know what I mean? It kind of heightens things a little bit. So,
or as Diamond Dave LaGreca would call it, little daddy sodas.
But yeah, we'll talk about the match as well. Now we had Jay versus Damian, some interference. I think maybe some people predicted to be the Bloodline coming in, especially with that little backstage confrontation that we had. That was kind of very, very interesting. We'll talk a little bit more about the Bloodline in a little bit, but what'd you guys think of this match, John?
So even though we got the other part of the Bloodline expansion, we'll say, spoiler alert, and we'll talk about later, I was still perhaps thinking that it might be a thread that runs through the show, and they might have a spot in this match as well. That didn't happen, as we know, but the match was fine. These guys are great in the ring. They work well together. A couple of false finishes, and maybe had you thinking a little bit, maybe, even though Priest just got the belt. But I do think that they did a great job of advancing that Judgment Day strife, right? Especially without Rhea Ripley around. Like, Mommy's gone and the boys are kind of going crazy already, and Priest is trying to prove that he doesn't need anybody's help. Well, he's made that point again today, and I'm sure that'll carry over too.
No, I liked that match very much. I like the storytelling in it. The fact that nobody from the Bloodline interfered in this match actually made sense. I was just curious to see how they were going to get past this match, because I thought too soon for Damian Priest to drop the championship and make him that transitional champion. I didn't want him to be that, because he's really upped his game big time. He's looking the part, and he's growing, and he's really growing into that role. And it's tough for Jey Uso. I know they say he's over. It doesn't matter if he takes the L in this one, and it's a matter of how you do it. And I think they did it really well with the interference from the other members of Judgment Day, trying to get in there. And of course, Damian Priest playing off it like, I don't need your help and all that sort of stuff. It worked in this case. And the fact that the Bloodline wasn't involved in this match whatsoever, I thought made a lot of sense as well. Leave that story separate for now. At least we can go back to it later, of course, but right now, just leave it the way it is.
Jimmy, what do you think is the next step, or what do you think they're trying to accomplish in this Judgment Day rift? Is it more of a just maybe it's time to go their separate ways, or do you think it's something to the extent of Rhea is really the glue that keeps everything together?
You can go either way, but I'd like to see them. I like the strife. I like them to all separate and go their separate ways. I like Damian Priest to be the lone wolf in the group and go out and really establish himself as the world heavyweight champion, because you've got a built-in story there with a lot of people. With Drew McIntyre, technically he is a heel. Both are heels, but at the same time, Damian Priest is almost like playing kind of sort of like a baby face, where he's like, look, I don't need help from you guys. I can get through this on my own. And they're doing it slowly. They're not doing that quick flip, if that makes any kind of sense. It looks like he's heading in that direction. And then you have stuff built up for the future with Damian Priest and others. And even Gunther. There you go. Gunther is a perfect example of a heel he could work with and become a babyface.
So to me, not that an injury is ever anything to be celebrated, of course, but sometimes you have these happy accidents, right? If Rhea Ripley were still healthy, I would have said right now, post-WrestleMania would be the time to blow the whole thing up. Let's take the story in that direction, have everybody go their separate ways. But now with her out, and maybe this is what something that somebody was thinking, now you can do a little bit of both. You can do the whole Priest wants to separate himself and doesn't need anybody's help, and there's some friction between the boys. But every once in a while, there's still some loyalty there. They're still wearing the same colors. They're still buddies. And maybe there's some help here and there, whether you need it or want it or not. And then when mommy comes back to get the house in order, it blows up in even more fantastic fashion, I think.
And you have that seed that was planted the other night where in the background, you saw coming out of the room, Liv Morgan and Dominic, and everybody's going, oh, what's going on there?
Definitely some cool things to come, but I do want to talk about another thing that happened in the match that I've never seen before, that I wonder if they're going to adapt. The yeet, no yeet chance when they're going back and forth with the strikes. Like, how has that not happened since the whole yeetness happened, the yeet movement, I guess you can say. Like, that's something where I'm surprised it took this long to catch on. Shout out to France. I guess they're like ahead of everyone else in this world, aren't they?
Yeah, you always learn from everybody, and we're learning from this crowd that once you get into it, it's some new chance. That's for sure. And I had to get the old translator out to figure out what some of them were. Even though my wife is French Canadian, she could have translated for me, but she wasn't watching with me, so unfortunately, I didn't have the live translation handy. But
well, would she approve of my adaptation of the 1-2 Sacre Bleu? Then is that would she give the thumbs up on that one?
I don't know. Let me ask. You know what? We're live. It doesn't matter. Hey, 1-2 Sacre Bleu. Is that okay? Is that
what does that even mean, though?
What does Sacre Bleu mean?
It's kind of like a damn it, is my understanding.
It's a religious swearing.
It's religious swearing.
Blue sacred.
Sacred blue. No.
Oh.
Okay. There we go.
Maybe I'll back off a little bit then.
I don't know.
I guess it's okay when it's a wrestling show, right?
Of course. It's wrestling. It's allowed.
Yeah, you got the final testament out there. I mean, why can't you just have Sacre Bleu? Who knows?
Well, look at Austin 316. Then.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, that's true. So from one championship match to another championship match, it seems like this was another match of the night candidate. I feel like they all were, to be honest with you. But the triple threat match for the WWE Women's Championship with Bayley defending against Naomi and Tiffany Stratton. I'm just gonna go out and say it. There's no if when it comes to it. It's going to be when. So I want to ask you first, John, how many months before Tiffany Stratton becomes women's champion?
How many months away is SummerSlam? Let's go there. Yeah. I mean, she impressed me from day one. I think she's 24 years old, something
just
like
about,
that. Yeah. And I've heard so many people in the industry talk about how quickly she's picked it up. I mean, I don't want to say she's flawless. Everybody makes mistakes, but she is so crisp and her work is so clean. At the same time, she lays it in there too, right? She's not afraid to get physical. And I absolutely love her finish. The prettiest moonsault ever is, I mean, look, I'm jealous. I can't, jump 2 feet high. So just to be able to do that and pull it out of nowhere is fantastic. I thought the match was entertaining. Bayley snuck away or snuck out with a win, right? Pull it out. So the champ's still going strong, but I think you're right, George. I think it's only a matter of time. She's got star written all over her.
No, absolutely. There's maybe Queen of the Ring is somewhere where you can start that ball rolling. That's for sure. She is a candidate. I know people are pointing at Liv Morgan, but Tiffany Stratton is in the conversation. That's for sure. And it's only a matter of time. I got asked on Twitter, do you think it's time? The time is right to strap that rocket to Tiffany Stratton? I said, patience, my friend. Take your time. There's no rush here, and that's one of the things that WWE does well is long-term storytelling and long-term booking, and that's what sells tickets down the road. You have to think to the future. One of my mentors once said, start from the end, book backwards. This is our goal. This is where we want to be. Start backwards and tell the story that way to eventually get to the goal you want to get to. And that's, I think, the perfect way to treat this Tiffany Stratton situation.
That's just like writing a story, right? You can't, you shouldn't be starting your story if you don't know where you're going. And to get there, that's how you lay it out, right? But that's a great point, Jimmy, too. We don't have to go straight to a title for her, especially with something like Queen of the Ring coming up, and her character would fit that really, really well, I think.
I do want to say I have the Kentucky Derby on in the background because apparently there's going to be some WWE announcement sometime soon. So I'm kind of curious how that's going to play out. I do want to ask about Bayley. Obviously, she just won, last month, just like Cody Rhodes. What's next for her? What's next for Bayley?
I think it's interesting. I think because Naomi was the one that she defeated, not Tiffany Stratton. I know people are automatically connecting the dots with her and Tiffany. I think that's in the cards and in play somewhere down the road. But I think maybe we get a little bit of a change from Naomi because we just got, people say, well, why not turn Bayley again? No, not yet. She just turned to babyface. Let her play that role. People love her. People are on board with her. Maybe you get a little switch in Naomi's character. Maybe a little, doesn't have to be a quick one. Take your time. It starts to turn, and all of a sudden she's, in play for a title shot, maybe down the road somewhere. Maybe that's the way to go, as opposed to the obvious, just trying to think of something outside the box a little bit.
I think you could go to the extreme with Naomi if you were to see an evil, sadistic side, right? Like her personality and her entrance is so outlandish and so vibrant, right? What if she just starts? No, forget that. No more glow, no more nothing. She's just vicious and. See a completely different side to her. I agree with what you say about Bayley too. She's only recently had the character shift that she's had. She's separating herself from all the damage control stuff and things like that. So I think a fresh rivalry would help as well. And maybe you get that in someone like a Naomi that flips and this goes along. They're great in the ring together. So why not?
I do want to add one more thing for Tiffany Stratton. I feel like maybe 15, 16 years ago, one of WWE's biggest missed opportunities is not selling gummy worms when the boogeyman was a thing. With that said, are we going to see eventually some Tiffany Stratton watches? So when somebody asks what time it is, it's Tiffany time.
Yes. Good call. Why get somebody, if anybody from WWE merchandising is listening, hey, take that into consideration and do something about it, because that is a great idea.
George gets a cut though. He's got to, right? It's his idea.
Well, I got a Uncle Howdy stable. We're going to talk about that for a second at the end, but that I'm hoping it's a good idea because I want to get your thoughts on it. But yeah, should be exciting. Obviously, this new change with the draft and everything. There's options as far as the next challenger for Bayley. But we talked a little bit about it before, so let's talk about this bloodline little saga that we're seeing. First off, what a way to start the show. Right, Kevin Owens coming out, like huge pop. That Randy Orton entrance, like I'm always a big fan of that Voices theme song. But like I said, this is one of those instances of like I want to be there, and I say that because I was watching that ECW documentary from like 20 years ago, and there was a moment where Paul Heyman was talking about like trying to create like a rave feel, especially for like the Al Snow and the head and the styrofoam heads. And he kind of says like, I want to create this environment where it's like, I want to do anything to be there. That's how I feel now when it comes to watching some of these WWE shows where I'm like, yeah, I want to be part of that environment. I live in LA and our crowds are okay. But like I want to go to France. I want to go to Scotland. I want to go to Puerto Rico and be a part of those crowds. Like, talk about like setting the tone. And then you had the bloodline come out. But John, like, what were your thoughts when you again, this was the start of the show. Yeah. You just knew that, like, man, this is going to be a good freaking crowd. This is going to be a great show to watch.
They were hot out the gate. I mean, from the minute KO's music hit, and then they're announcing his name with Samantha, like I said, and then singing every word of Randy's song, which you could tell, even for the Viper, he gave him many thank yous. It touched him. I mean, I always think about stuff like that. And Jimmy, you've been there. Like, that's gotta feel so good when you know that many people are bought into what you're doing. You know what I mean? And all there in unison at once. It's just phenomenal. I did worry, like I said earlier, though, that how electric they were right out the gate. I'm like, oh man, I hope they don't tire out, right? But they never did. They kept it going. Fantastic.
I don't know whether it was the Prime energy drink or what they were serving there, but that crowd was electric all through the entire show. They didn't slow down once. And to your point about the entrances, it was phenomenal. They took their time with it too. They didn't rush it. They felt it. They said, you know what? You feed off the audience. You go with what they're doing. And that's what they did with the entrances, which was phenomenal. And speaking of phenomenal, not AJ Styles, Randy Orton to me is just incredible. Watching a master class in everything he does, every facial expression, the way he sells it. There was at one point where he threw that headbutt on Solo, and usually the guy on offense giving the headbutt, the way he sold it as well. Like you should. If you headbutt somebody, you're going to feel it as well. Randy, I don't know how to explain this properly. George, maybe you can help me here. But he sells beautifully. At times, it's not like a wrestler. It's like a regular human being would sell stuff. Mm-hmm. And it looks so authentic. It looks so real where it makes you think. And even like little things like when he's in the crowd and he's with, and he's throwing those punches on this on the stairways going up, you're right beside people. So you got to make them look great. Mm-hmm. And he's a master at making those punches look like they're really in there. And people are saying, "Oh, he's being snug." No, he just knows how to work fantastically and make you believe. And he draws you in. And that's what I love about Randy. Everything he does is just so crisp and smooth. And man, when you talk Mount Rushmores of overall talents, I think he gets overlooked.
You can tell he's having fun lately too. And he had fun today. Remember the spot where they came out of the crowd and KO hit the frog splash off the barricade. And then Randy made it look like he was going to do something as well. Popped down, then he gave a little smirk as he walked away and took him over to the ring steps instead. I thought that was great.
He was probably thinking, maybe 10 years ago, okay, but not now.
Yeah.
It's crazy because Randy was out for like a good 18 months and he kind of missed a lot of this international expansion. Like he wasn't at the show at Clash of the Castle a year and a half ago. No Puerto Rico, no UK. This was kind of his first real show being right in the middle of this, international field. And man, what a reception he got. Mm-hmm. I know somebody mentioned in the chat room, but maybe this might be interesting. Randy versus Cody.
Oh yeah.
Oh, I could definitely see that down the line.
It doesn't even necessarily have to be like a heel Randy, because like I said, I feel like Randy's having the time of his life right now, even as a babyface. Mm-hmm. But that's a lot. I guess you can say there's a lot of legacy left in there,
Hey.
Mm-hmm. So you wanted in there. But we saw, the match was fun. It was everything it needed to be. If there's one thing that I kind of dislike in pro wrestling, because it's still real to me, damn it, is when you have this blood feud and the match starts with like a lockup and a headlock takeover. And, I'm like, what are you guys doing here? So this was the opposite of that. These guys just went at it, tooth and nail. And it got changed to a no DQ, no holds barred match, which obviously allowed them to, fight all over the crowd. And then we all saw something that I don't think was on anyone's bingo card because we all expecting someone else to show up. I know my first thought was like, man, that Jacob Fatu lost a lot of weight. Is that Camacho? Oh, that's Camacho. Obviously, Tonga Loa. I know who he is. But John, what was your thought when you saw Camacho come out and insert himself in this story?
So I was covering the PLE for Wrestling Inc. And so we have we call it the Wink newsroom, right? But Slack channel, right? We're just talking. And I said, I think we're forgetting about Jacob Fatu. The rumors have been around forever that he signed, and this would be a great time to debut him, especially in a match that now lends itself to plenty of interference since it went no DQ. You've got the false finish, 1-2, pull the ref out spot. And I automatically thought it was Jacob. This is it. Here we go. And then they pan over and we didn't have that on the bingo card. We didn't. In fact, I said, and maybe you guys know differently, but I said, do we even know that he was available? I didn't personally, but didn't have it in the realm of possibilities. And you got to love that. I mean, they're still coming up with surprises in this day and age. That's so hard to pull off.
No, I totally agree. That was, and the beautiful way about it too, the way they shot it, you didn't see it coming. Like a lot of times when something is being shot a certain way, you see somebody sneaking out of the crowd. The way they positioned the camera shots and everything, you almost went like, what the heck just happened? You didn't see him grabbing the referee's leg until they showed the replay. Then you saw the full shot. But before that, you didn't know what was going on. You're wondering what happened with the referee there for a second. But yeah, like you said, Tonga Loa, very much a surprise. Everybody, like you said, was expecting maybe a Jacob Fatu, but now that adds another interesting twist to that Bloodline storyline, because you might have Bloodline A versus Bloodline B, and where does Jacob Fatu's loyalties lie? You know what I mean? Could he even side with the Roman Reigns side of things, as opposed to what we assume is going to be The Rock leading the charge for this solo led in-ring stuff for now? So there's a lot of, connecting the dots that can be made here. And there's a lot of question marks too, which is fun because it's a lot of people guessing, hey, I wonder what's going to happen here. I wonder what's going to happen. But that's the fun of it. You don't know. Just when you think, Roddy Piper, just when you think you got all the answers, they change the questions.
And the other thing that's fun about it too is like you said, we don't know, but who else is communicating and reinforcing the fact that we don't know is Paul Heyman himself, with the amount of angst that he's showing on his face in the last few appearances, right? Mm-hmm. Especially today, they're throwing up the ones, and Solo, made him, and he's all nervous. So good.
No, and one little thing with Paul Heyman, you notice at the end of the match, he showed concern for Kevin Owens, which made it even more. They just added just another layer to that ending, and it was great and awesome stuff. I'm loving it.
So if you guys were to predict, I'll go with you first, Jimmy. Where do you, because obviously this is another matter, not a if, but when Jacob Fatu does come in, what do you see him doing? Is he siding with, Bloodline Solo or Team Rock or Bloodline? I mean, again, there's so many unanswered questions. Who knows? Maybe Roman comes in and sides with Solo this whole time, you still got the Jimmy factor who's, out injured both in story and in reality. So how do you insert Jacob Fatu in this whole mix if you were to do it, let's say, in a couple weeks?
Well, if I'm not mistaken, aren't Jimmy and Jacob related?
Yes.
Yes.
So Jacob is Tonga Kid's son.
Yes, right.
And Tonga Kid's obviously brothers with Fatu, so I want to say they're cousins.
Yes, exactly, close cousins. So I could see him siding with Jimmy, taking offense, because we've already seen two debuting members of the Bloodline siding with Solo. It would make sense for somebody to side with Jimmy and be on that side of the battle. So I could see him siding with him, and then Roman showing up to even the odds, so to speak. And then eventually we have The Rock show up and try to, interject himself and get all the fans all upset that here's the boss in injecting himself into the story and trying to take over things. And of course, that's the perception that everybody has. It's what happened at WrestleMania 40, they say. But that's further down the line. There's a lot of time for that. There's a lot of layers to this that they can build on. And having Jacob Fatu, that is, sorry, and that's another J, double J. But having him as part of the story, I'd like to see him and Jey Uso maybe even, siding with his brothers along the way as well.
Yeah, I think we've definitely got some sort of split, Bloodline A, Bloodline B situation going on here for sure. And don't forget as well, after the match, they all walked through the back and we saw that look of concern on Heyman's face again, as everybody caught eyes with Jay. And Heyman almost looked like he wanted to say something, didn't, kept going. So he could be a moving piece here too, right? He doesn't seem too comfortable where he's at right now. So, does he shift over to one side or another? Maybe a little double cross. We've seen it many times before. This story, believe it or not, still has so much legs to it. Who knows how long this can go on?
Is there any question now that the Samoan, with all due respect to every other family, that the Samoan family is practically the best family in pro wrestling?
You can definitely make that argument because look at the lineage. Look at how many members of that family have made it, to that platform, that stage. It's hard to think of any other family. You can, here in Canada, obviously the Hart family you can think of, and that sort of thing. But man, the lineage of the Samoan dynasty is incredible, from way back when, from the High Chief to today, and it's continuing to grow. It's amazing.
It's funny when Rock rolled out the big picture of the giant family tree. That was a really cool, awesome display. It gave me PTSD a little bit because I had done a piece for Wrestling Inc. and part of it's on the YouTube channel. After the Iron Claw came out, the piece was here X amount of films we want to see now moving forward about other wrestling families, and I had the Hearts in there, and I had the Anawais and the Samoan Dynasty in there, and I had to do the research to say this is this person's kid, and that's how these people are related. And holy moly! So then you go and you look at the YouTube version of it, and the voice talent reads through it, and I'm listening to it, and I'm like, wow, I can't even follow. Like I have to see it out laid out in a visual, right? But yeah, they're amazing. It just keeps going.
You know what I want to see? I want to see like a member of the Hart family marry somebody from the Von Erich family, and then eventually they'll be counted as one and maybe take over the Anoa'i, Fatu family.
Oh my goodness. Somebody's thinking over there.
See, so now George is looking to get merch credits for his idea earlier, and now he's getting creative. So
yes. Yeah.
This is what I do. I don't know about you guys, but what I do in traffic when I got no other podcast to listen to, I'm like, well, let's book the territory, I'm not just in traffic because this is me literally in traffic, like, oh God.
Yeah.
Just sitting there thinking about wrestling stuff.
No, I hear you. Sometimes I do that too, but sometimes I also try to take old 70s tunes and reword the lyrics to the song to make them wrestling related and having to do with references. As I like to call it, Korderas karaoke.
Well, now you got to say which was the last 70s tune that you try to wrestlingize.
Ooh, I'm saving one for this next episode of the Reffing It Up podcast with Brian Hebner and RJ. By the way, our next guest is Devon Dudley, which is going to be fun.
Ooh, testify.
Yeah, get the tables. So I'm gonna wait for that one because the last time I did it, I did something for Brian the last podcast, and he almost spit out his daddy soda in the middle of doing it. So I like to get him to pop. But I did the Allman Brothers.
Okay.
A little bit. I did a little bit of Allman Brothers. What was the other one? Man, I've done a few of them, but even a couple on Triple J on Monday nights, which. I like to get people to pop. I have fun.
Call me when you start doing 80 songs and putting them into wrestling stuff.
Oh, I'm going to have to look up some 80 songs then. Yeah.
I mean, my Sharona would probably be the easiest. There's probably a lot of things that have the same kind of syllable as a Sharona, so that'd be fun to do.
Yeah.
That could be a future theme for Matt Cardona. It fits right in there.
Ooh, Matt Cardona. Oh, that's genius. Look at that. Not Jon Jordan.
Are you listening? Matt, are you listening? Hey, I was thinking along.
Yeah, why wouldn't you be?
I was thinking along the lines of something like a Bruce Springsteen, "Baby, I Was Born to Ref" or something like that.
Oh,
I love it. That's probably my favorite Bruce Springsteen song. I want to put WrestleMania 43 in Dallas for George. Ultimate Rivalry: Rhodes, Hart, Von Erich family versus Samoan Dynasty with an epic Dudley run-in of every Dudley from Daddy Dudley's travel from Dudleyville. Love it.
Sure.
I'm gonna take that as an idea and take it as my own. So thanks, Bernie DC. Our fifth match of the day. We saw the women's tag team championship get defended. The Kabuki Warriors against Bianca and Jade. Now, I do want to start off by saying, because I know there was you got some questions on Twitter, but I do want to put up this super chat from Corey Pride. Jimmy, did the women's tag match have a referee error, wrestler error, or both? Seemed like the rules were ignored. Nobody knew who was legal in the ring. What are your thoughts, Jimmy?
Put it honestly, I think a little bit of the blame goes on both. You have to, because it was confusing, and I think they lost track of who was legal and who wasn't. And it wasn't that he wasn't enforcing the rules. I think even poor Dan Engler got a little bit confused as well. Whether they were buzzing him in his IFB and telling him, hey, no, or whatever the case may be, it got confusing. And I think even he got a little bit confused, and the talent got a little bit confused as to who was legal and who was not. So I think a little bit of the blame, unfortunately, goes on all parties involved. And you know what? If you can try and spin a negative into a positive, use it as part of the story going forward. The only reason Jade and Bianca were to defeat us was they pinned the wrong person, or there was the illegal person was in the ring making the pin cover, whatever the case was. I was even confused. I was trying to follow along, and there was one point where he did stop his pin attempt. There was a pin attempt, and he stopped it because even the announcers played it off where, yes, the illegal person's in the ring trying to make the cover. Good job by Dan Engler. And then Asuka tagged herself back in when she didn't have to because she was already the legal person. So that's where those things started spinning a little bit out of control. So I think a little bit of the blame falls on everyone there.
Yeah, it definitely was a bit confusing, especially in my case, as I was researching something else that I had to write at the time. So I didn't see a whole lot of it, and I didn't understand where the confusion came from. I think as a viewer, you probably picked up on that better than the people in the ring did at one point or another, right? And then timing gets all messed up and everything else like that. Overall, though, we predicted, most of us, that this would be the outcome of this match. I think Jade Cargill paired up with Bianca Belair for the time being is a great place for her to be as she continues to, get her legs under her. And if they decide to push the button on, hey, the only reason you beat us, like Jimmy said, you've got, existing stories for weeks already to continue with there.
I'm in a group chat with some buddies of mine, as we all are, and we were kind of talking about, because I'm a big fan of like, hey, give these. I'm not a big fan of two people not having a team name. So we were just trying to come up with some team names. A couple of people mentioned. I said I was going to take it for myself. Is like they're like a female Harlem Heat. So maybe play around with something like that, because I mean these two ladies are just so physically imposing. You walk into a room, much like Harlem Heat back in the day, you just knew that these two, big ginormous wrestlers are just somebody. If you look at Jade and Bianca, imagine them two walking into any room anywhere in the world. You already know that they belong somewhere in the spotlight, and tonight was no different. In my opinion, I thought we saw some interesting, great, innovative moves with the two. I know there was a lot of chatter in regards to the awkward ref spot, but I don't think it took away anything from the match. What about you, John?
I mean, in the end, they still accomplished what they needed to accomplish, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they worked through it, and that's what being a professional is all about, no matter what you do, right? But to your point, it's the ultimate crushing of the airport test, right? And it's also that situation where if they walked into a room and you're not a wrestling fan and you don't know who they are, you still know that they're somebody. Their presence alone, but the two of them simply have that. They look like $1 million. And just physical specimens, really. So that's where you're going to get some of those innovative moves from, based on the strength and athleticism of those two alone. Probably with much more to come, I'm sure.
Yeah, you said it. You took the words right out of my mouth. The airport test. That's exactly what I was thinking when you guys were talking about it. And as far as Jade's progression, I think she's progressing well. Obviously she still needs a little more work, but that one transition that she did, I can't even explain what, picking up, it wasn't Asuka, it was Kari.
Kari Sane, yeah.
Kari Sane, and did that. I don't know. She kept reversing her into different positions. The strength that you need to do something like, yes, you get help from the other person, but at the same time, it just looks so smooth when you look at it and then go, man, I never imagined anything like that from her, especially. But she's moving along, and there's a reason why they've paired her with Bianca. I'm sorry, and she's getting a little bit of in-ring reps, and that's what she needs right now. She needs to get those reps in. I like how she sold certain stuff when she did sell, but she needs to work on her facials as well. And we bring it back to Randy Orton, because he's a master at it. Because not only does he know how to sell with his body, he sells with his face as well, and he doesn't do it over the top and hokey, for lack of a better word.
I'm gonna talk about that real quick, because I just saw the announcement on the Kentucky Derby, April 19th and 20th, WrestleMania in Las Vegas. It's official from Allegiant Stadium. WrestleMania, April 19th and 20th.
Okay, next year, April. I'm just letting the wife know. April 19th and 20th next year. It's in Vegas. WrestleMania. Can you come? Of course, we're going. There you go.
We're all gonna crash with Glenn since it's in Vegas.
Yeah, there you go. Book it. We're booking it.
Yeah, just saw the announcement. I know somebody on the chat as well kind of shared it, but I'm only 4-hour driving, so I'm in Los Angeles, so I'm pretty excited about that. Maybe are we going to see, speaking of which, watch the transition, are we going to see Bianca and Jade hold the tag team titles up until WrestleMania? Because who the hell is going to beat this team, Jimmy?
That's the question, and that's it's like that Road Warrior thing. Like, who in the right mind would go up against, you think, has a chance of beating the Road Warriors? And that's what it looks like with Jade and Bianca right now. And maybe there's a little bit something there. Who do you turn? If you want to turn one of them and split them up, who do you choose?
Jade.
Because, yeah, that's the one I'm thinking too. But at the same time, there's someone, again, she's got that $1 million look. But I think she would be better off in that heel role if the two of them were to go their separate ways, or maybe even battle each other, and costing her. Look, how's this for a fantasy booking? Just came to my head, where Jade turns on Bianca because she thinks that I don't want to say the tag titles are beneath her, but she's capable of much higher and going after a bigger title. And maybe you put her up against, after she's finished with Jade in that rivalry, put her on with someone like a Bayley or whoever's champion at that time.
Maybe that solves the problem of who in the world do you have beat them too, because maybe you see that split in the middle of a match. You know, the old spot where somebody goes for a tag and they hop off the apron and just walk away, right? And so then there goes that issue as well.
Yeah, and it's not a disqualification if your own partner lays you out.
It's true.
I guess we got to wait and find out. I personally think they're going to lose the championships at some point before Mania. That would maybe set up Bianca versus Jade at WrestleMania 41, because that's they're 41. Whether it's for a championship or not, I've been a strong advocate of, I want to see a female women's, or for me, I want to see a women's match at WrestleMania that's not for a championship. That's a one-on-one. I feel like that's what's missing from this revolution. I know we're seeing like a mid-card title in NXT as well, but I think that would be the next progression. We've seen it at SummerSlam. We've seen it at other PLEs, but it's time for WrestleMania to have that big-time one-on-one, the same way that we've seen many, many men have one-on-one matches with no championship, just two people that don't like each other. So can't wait to see how that turns out. Before we put a bow on this Backlash review, I want to talk about a little bit about this. Some more Uncle Howdy QR codes that are being shown. I know we've all been kind of following to see what's happening. John, what do you expect out of these? And I know they're very fun to watch, and I think they're so interesting. And so, as a film industry guy myself, I love how they're put together, just how creative they can be. So, what are your thoughts about everything, John?
Yeah, and outside the wrestling world, I work in marketing, so I love the engagement factor that this forces you to dial up. It forced me to peel away from the wrestling action for a bit and research this because I had to write it up. This one was very interesting, I thought. For a bit, I thought we might see some returning characters at this particular PLE. That didn't happen, but that's okay. This one kind of hinted that it's coming sooner than later, though. It was right after the World Championship match. Michael Cole was talking about Lyon, France, where they're showing some beautiful countryside footage, and that QR code popped up. And it took you to a landing page at WWE.com/Porte Ouverte. And I'm going to get that wrong, and all apologies to Mrs. Korderas, but I looked it up, and that's French for open door. Okay. So on that page, there was an audio file that was hosted on this landing page, and what looked like a phone number led with 888. It turns out that that's the same number that in 2022 was part of the teaser toward Bray Wyatt coming back.
Oh, wow.
The one that if you called, it had a doctor, all in character, of course, revealing some sort of mental health diagnosis and a major tease of the return time we thought maybe of the Fiend and so on and so forth. But it's the same number. But the audio, the separate audio on the page says, and I quote, "You think you're so close to finding him, but you don't even know what you're looking for. He's not what you think. He just wants to help. That's all he ever wanted. He opens up his arms and makes you feel like you matter, like you belong. He doesn't change you. He reminds you. He wants to know, why did you forget about them? He says he opened the door and the time of secrets has come to an end." Now, there's a little bit more, but to that point, them. The key word is them. And I think this lends some credence to these rumors of other people being involved, not just potentially Taylor Rotunda, Bo Dallas, Uncle Howdy, whatever you want to call him. Remember last night on SmackDown, the QR code led to something where Believe turned into Believe very, very quickly. So I think there's a lot that can be said about that. But also the phone number that was on the page, if you called the number, and I had to do it a few times because there's a little bit of it that really can't understand, says, mentions the ones that had gone missing, says none of you cared, their families didn't care, their friends didn't care, but I set them free. They're my family now, and we'll do anything to protect our family. I can't wait for you to see what we've become. It's beautiful. So that tells me that we're getting closer. We're not as close as maybe some of us thought, but it's got to be soon, I would think, whatever it is.
Yeah, that's nice. That's a good insight. I didn't know all that, and I'm glad to hear all that because it's going to be tricky. I know if it is going to be an homage to Bray Wyatt and by his brother and so forth, it's tricky how you do it. You don't want to make it over the top
Mhm.
wrestling, but you want to do it justice. And I have a feeling that they are going to do it justice. And the other thing too, if I'm not mistaken, I read somewhere where Eric Rowan has re-signed
Mhm.
with WWE as well. So there's another character in play. And I just don't want them to use that Uncle Howdy name. I just think that this is the time to lose that. And I like the Bo Leave stuff.
Yeah, I agree with you. And I wrote something last night that was along those lines as well. I thought the Bo Leave inclusion was gave me every indicator that they are being as careful as they can possibly be with what they're doing here. And they might be thinking about, the Uncle Howdy thing, which was a little campy mixed in with the last Bray Wyatt run and things like that. And we all know the reality now, right? Like we all went through that, not nearly as much as the family did and those closest to Wyndham Rotunda, but we all know the truth. So now you have something that's innately tied to that truth that's so very fresh in all of our minds. So you almost have to respect that, right? So I'm intrigued. It does make me a little nervous because I don't want them to get it wrong. I really don't think they will, though. I think they're paying a lot of care here and a lot of attention to making sure that it's respectful.
I kind of like what you said, John, because and again, my heart goes out to everybody, the family, because we saw something not similar, obviously not similar in any way, but when Eddie passed, right? When Eddie, right before Eddie passed, there was a gentleman by the name of Kerwin White on Monday Night Raw, and Eddie passed, and obviously he went back to Chavo Guerrero, and yeah, he was a nice little baby face, and I feel like there was that sympathy play, and like we're gonna root for you because we like Eddie, and it just kind of feels like the crowd doesn't want to be told who to cheer for. So it kind of eventually became like, hey, we like you, Chavo, but we're not going to cheer for you just because you're related to Eddie, right? And there are some parallels when it comes to that, and maybe like Bo Dallas and whatnot. So I'm hoping, like you said, John, like I feel like they're going to get this one right. Not that they got it wrong with Chavo. Chavo's a tremendous talent and everything. But I do want to present maybe a storyline pitch to you guys. Are you guys a fan of the movie Saw in any way, or movies? Saw, Jigsaw.
No, unfortunately, I'm not familiar with it, or else,
The first one in particular, absolutely. They went down the rabbit hole a little bit too much in 3, 4, 5, and 19, but yeah, the first one, absolutely.
So not really a spoiler alert because I kind of mentioned it early on in the movies, but Jigsaw, the main character, he has brain cancer. And he, has this vision and things like that. He's got a lot of apprentices and a lot of people kind of succeeding him and whatnot, to the point where toward the end of the Saw movies, I know Tenny comes back, but that was like a prequel to something. There were like Jigsaw had passed away because of the brain cancer, but his vision was still being continued by all the apprentices as far as, carrying on what his vision was and everything. I kind of want to see that with his Wyatt group, right? Like especially with the documentary that we saw on Peacock, Bray Wyatt was very creative. And we saw a lot of things that he wanted to do. And I kind of want to see something like that where you have these guys, Bo Dallas, Alexa, Rowan, kind of continuing what his vision saw. But again, it's about finding a balance of carry on his legacy, but also creating your own legacy. And the magic of pro wrestling is you have that ability to maybe change things in some ways. Like if something's not working, then maybe you can tweak it, as opposed to, like, say you're watching a movie's done already. Something happens in the movie, it may create an ending that it just sucks, and there's nothing you can change that. But when it comes to wrestling, that's the magic of it, where we've seen it before, where things can maybe get changed at some point. And I'm very optimistic on what we're going to see with this new Wyatt stable legacy, which I think has a lot of potential to be really, really cool things. I just wanted them to stay away from like any kind of world title picture. Like I don't want to see Bo Dallas, like maybe not anytime soon. Nobody needs to be a championship. We just want to see something fun.
I agree with that. And I like the fact that under this new regime, I could see that happening. And if some things don't feel right, I am also confident that they will try to steer the ship in a different direction to make it feel right, or at least attempt to make it feel right. Whereas under the old regime, the old boss had a tendency to kind of stay the course and say, hey, this is going to work. And that's it. You didn't have a choice. You just had to follow along. Whereas under Paul Triple H Levesque, these ideas, he's not opposed to, as we saw at WrestleMania, calling an audible and saying, hey, you know what? Let's try this and let's go in a different direction. So it is going to be very interesting where they go with this.
Well, we talked earlier, guys, too, about storytelling and how you come up with the ending before you start anything. It's my understanding that the last run of Bray Wyatt creative was largely from his own noodle, right? So he knew where he wanted to go with this, presumably. And if anybody else did, I would have to think it was his brother. You know what I mean? So I'm not saying that they're going to continue that story exactly, but maybe there's some element to where they were going to go with that Taylor Bodalis, aka formerly known as Uncle Howdy, hopefully, like we said, will carry that through and see it through as best they can. Or maybe it's just a little bit of a tribute here and there. Either way, I think that there was an end in mind for whatever that run was going to be, because it looked like we were just getting started based on that documentary. And I think they will definitely do it justice.
I want to thank everybody here. Before we wrap, first off, I love you guys. I want to say that out loud. But before we wrap up, one more question. Or I got two more questions for each of you, but I'll go with you, John, first. What was your match of the night for Backlash?
I would put it, I had to break a tie at some point, and for me, it was the energy of the main event that put that over the finish line. It would have been the first match or the last match. So I'm going to go with Cody and AJ as the best match of the night.
How about you, Jimmy?
I would want to agree, but I would put that as 1B because that opening, the two most important matches of the night, as you guys know, are how you start the night and how you end the night. And that first match had such an energy to it. And, you know, the way it was unique in the way it started, because like you guys said, it didn't collar elbow tie up. This was a blood feud, and they started it off that way. And to have the security and the others coming in to break it up before the match even started was a unique way to start this thing, and have Nick Aldis come out and turn it into a no DQ, not false count anywhere, but anything goes street fight kind of match. Was a good way to go about it and give people what they want. And the challenge of those matches are not overdoing it. And they took their time throughout that entire match and made every big spot feel important. And let me tell you something really quickly here. Landing on those announce tables when they don't break and they don't give is a lot tougher than landing in that ring. People don't understand that when it does give way, at least it disperses that impact a little bit. And them landing on those tables without any give, hats off to him, especially taking an RKO. That's probably rougher on Randy than the guy he's given it to be honest with you. But because of the energy and all that went on in that match and how they played it off in the surprise new member to the bloodline, I'd have to go with that match for my match of the night.
What about Jimmy? Who or whom, I guess MVPs, most valuable player or most valuable players of tonight Backlash?
To me, my most valuable player, I think, is AJ Styles, because between the video packages that they showed leading up to the match and his interactions with Cody Rhodes last night on SmackDown and then again today, and the facial expressions and the lines he used talking to it, says, I don't want that title. I need that title. Little things like that. And the match they had, like you said, John, it was a great, great match. And he did his job like a pro does. He got the champion over big time, and against a guy like AJ Styles, who's, pardon the pun, phenomenal, because he truly is. And he showed tonight that not only is he phenomenal as a wrestler, you know, in as far as technically, his face, again, we talk about facials all the time and that sort of thing. He displayed all of that tonight. He was all world. So he's my MVP for tonight.
What about you, John?
I would try to cop out again and go with a tie. I would give part of that tie to AJ, and I would give part of it to Cody. But I'm going to call an audible as they're coming together. They're friends again, and they would like to give it to that crowd. I stole these from my kid. They would the toy versions of Cody and AJ would like to give the MVP of Backlash to the crowd. Fantastic. So happy to see people like that. It puts a smile on your face, makes you want to go, wish you were there, like you guys said. And that's just, you know, we need more energy like that in this world. I won't go off on a tangent there, but it was a very pleasant atmosphere to take in, and made for a nice little afternoon here in my humble abode.
We'll see. It looks like Backlash might be like the international capital of Backlash, or Backlash might be the international place to have these pay-per-views. But
George, did you give us your match of the night and your MVP?
No, I have not, because nobody asked me.
No.
But I'm gonna go with I'm gonna go with pretty much agreeing with John. The AJ Styles and Cody Rhodes match. First off, if you're gonna say phenomenal, you got to do the chant like everyone else said every time anything phenomenal happened. But yeah, the MVP is like a 11,000 way tie of that crowd, because how did it was just I was watching it, right? I'm so flustered because I can't even think about it right now. Is everybody just knew where to chant like at the right time. It's not just 10 people chanting and everybody picks up on it. It's like everybody got the memo. It was like a big flash mob in France that everybody just knew exactly when to do. And how do you watch pro wrestling and just complain in any single way? Like, I know I have some friends that are just like, oh, I don't watch it. It's different. Back in the day, it was a lot better. I'm like, okay, like I get what you're trying to say, but how do you watch this and be like, find any flaws in just a presentation of just anything, whether it's the wrestlers or the matches and just that crowd? My God, I wouldn't be surprised if WrestleMania 42 is in Paris, France, because it's good. Wrestling is just fun. It's just so much fun, Like, I'm glad I never grew out of it. It's just so. These are one of those things that makes me just happy to. I'm gonna watch it back, probably like twice more today. That Jey Uso entrance.
Mm-hmm. Just I don't know if I've told you the story, John. I told this before, and I don't want to take up too much time because I know we've got a wrap here.
We got like 3 hours left. We're good.
Cool. No, but when I first few months when I started in working for Jack Tunney, and we used to transport the talent to the Brantford Civic Center for the TV tapings because they taped 3 weeks worth of Wrestling Challenge back then. In those days, I was in charge of driving one of the minibuses, and in this bus. I'm this young guy just losing my mind because sitting shotgun beside me was Classy Freddie Blassie. Sitting behind me was Captain Lou Albano, Bruno Sammartino. Behind him was Mr. Fuji, Gorilla Monsoon. I'm losing it. And I've never really had the lengthy conversation with Bruno Sammartino, although he had been pleasant to me, and stuff. And he just says, "So Jimmy, how long have you been working for Jack?" I said, "Oh, I don't know, about 4 months maybe or something, 5 months or something like that." He says, "Do you like it?" I said, "Yeah, I love it. It's amazing." He says, "Would you like some advice?" And in my mind, I'm going, "Oh my God, Bruno Sammartino is going to give me this wonderful advice." He said, "Yes, sir, I would love some advice." He says, "You want some advice? Get out." Pardon me? He says, "Get out of this business because once it's in your blood, it'll never leave you." And he was absolutely right. And, the other guys said, Bruno, leave the kid alone. Come on. And, if there's one piece of advice I never took in my career, that was it. And I'm glad I didn't, because I hate to put it this way, but it's like a drug, and it's there. It'll never leave, and it'll always be there. And it drives my wife crazy because I talk about it so much, and she's not a wrestling fan, but she puts up with it for me. So I appreciate her for that.
It drives mine crazy too, and I've never stepped foot in a ring. I understand that very well, what you said there. But you saw that passion, that intensity, that addiction, that addictive nature. The people that were at that show today are never going to forget it, 100%. And when you were saying that they all knew where to chant and what to do, I looked up that song, and it had something. Graves touched on it briefly on the show. But actually, it took it a step further. It apparently is a chant that they do with the French national soccer team all the time. And it all revolves around the word phenomenal. The name of the song is Il est vraiment phenomenal. And so that's when they hit that la 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 at the end. Look, I'm about to go to a Kentucky. I'll be late to a Kentucky Derby party today, and I'm going to go into my friend's house singing this song, and we'll see if we can liven this party up right away. But so much fun.
Yeah. Before you guys put yourself over and promote wherever people want to follow you, I don't appreciate you lying, John. You said those were your kids' toys. Come on, dude.
Yep.
I still collect. I got action figures still. I'm not gonna sit there and tell people it's my kids.
So possession is 9/10 of the law, I suppose. But also, every single one of these that he has, I bought mostly, so for the most part. So they
technically belong to you. Yeah.
Technically, they are mine. Yeah.
Oh, that's amazing.
Where can people find you on the socials, John?
For me, it's at Jon Jordan, no H, on the Twitter, and just follow my stuff at WrestlingInc.com. We're doing all kinds of cool stuff all the time. Got all the news for you, features, and the whole 9 yards. And I am your pinch hitter extraordinaire for this podcast. Here and there, like to jump in and have a good time, provide a a different face, different perspective every once in a while. And it's a pleasure to be with you again, George, and absolute pleasure to work with you for the first time, Jimmy. I know we've talked a little bit, but this was fun.
Oh, this was awesome. Good. I had a blast today, not only with the pay-per-view, but with you guys too. It was awesome.
But where can people find you, Jimmy, on the social media? I know you're very interactive a lot on the X.
Yeah, I try to be positive until somebody tries to tweak my buttons and they forget I have thick skin. If I do reply kind of sarcastically, I'm amusing myself. That's all it is, and I have the bad habit of doing that. But as far as where you can find me, obviously here on Monday nights, usually with Triple J, and on Wednesday nights with yourself, George, and Jack, where we post Dynamite. And again, the Roughing It Up podcast with my good brother in stripes, Brian Hebner, and I, and RJ. And last week we had Matt Camp, which was a fun episode, talking to Matt. And this week, like I said, Devon Dudley joins us. He's going to get the tables. I hope not for me. And my rough and rants that I do on my social media platforms, at Jimmy Korderas on Twitter, at Real Jimmy Korderas on Instagram, and everything. Again, my little 1 minute or so videos, either a critique or putting something over, just giving my takes. Again, my opinions are those of me and me alone, and you can agree if you like. You can disagree if you like. It's okay, because that's what it is, an opinion. But I'm just giving it not to tear down, which a lot of people mistake as a critique, as a tear down. No, it's a hopefully something that helps from my point of view, anyways.
Yeah, people can agree with you if they like. If they disagree, they're wrong. But you can follow me on all social medias, George Hermoza, GHERMOZA, on Twitter, Instagram, all that jazz. You can follow my YouTube channel, The Wrestling Chatter, TW Chatter, on all the socials. I'm going to post an interview with David Penzer, WCW and TNA announcer, sometime soon, probably in a couple days. And I'll have some more cool content putting up on a regular basis. But thank you, everybody watching. Go ahead, Jimmy.
No, really quickly, I just want to say props to the pre-show team of Jackie Redmond, my old co-host on Aftermath up here in Canada. Biggie is really doing a great job on those, and of course, CM Punk is a no-brainer, Yeah. But they had a great, really good pre-game show. Those three gelled well together.
Yeah,
and go Leafs, go!
1,000%.
Game 7, yeah.
Game 7 tonight. Yeah.
Fingers crossed. Thanks everybody for joining us on the live chat. If you're watching us live, if you're watching us later on Saturday or Sunday, whenever you guys want, you can watch us anytime. You can watch us in 2027 if you guys like, because that's the magic of YouTube. We're going to be around forever and ever. So thank you once again, and we'll see you next time.